Welcome to ET Interview, and it gives me great pleasure to bring on board Mr. Uday Shankar. He's President Disney APAC, head of Star India, and also Vice President with FICCI. Mr. Shankar, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We're interacting for the first time on this forum, at least on the ET Now platform. So a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Nikunj. It's a pleasure to be on this platform and a pleasure to be with a fellow journalist.
I have to ask the obvious question. Historians have always divided the world into AC and BC. As market commentators, as journalists, we are dividing the world into pre-COVID and post-COVID. How has life changed for you personally and professionally in the post-COVID world?
Life has changed a lot, and some basics have remained the same. We are still, we're still alive. We are still getting up and looking positively about the life and getting about our priorities. We are running our businesses. But after that, everything else has changed. We have to run our businesses very differently. You can't travel. You can't even go to the office. You can't meet with people in the same room because everyone is sitting in lockdown. My portfolio stretches across Asia-Pacific region, so the level of my challenges are even greater. But the one thing that I have realized is that people are extremely adaptable, and they're trying to make it work. And a lot of things that we are discovering about efficiency, effectiveness, and new ways of working are pretty stimulating and exciting. The bigger challenge is that the economy has taken a massive hit, and in this country and everywhere else. But here, because of the lockdown, the economy has been practically shut down, and that's a huge challenge. And most of us are still trying to grapple with how to deal with it. So we have not even started dealing with it. Most people are actually, to tell you the truth, are still trying to find out how to deal with it.
Let's talk about your business and advertising. We all know that there is going to be a fall. What could be the quantum of fall? And do you think we are in for a long, long, long winter?
Yeah, we are in for a dark, long, scary winter. That I can tell you right at the outset. Anything else would be sugarcoating it. The fall has already been precipitous. Just to give you an example, this is the month of May. April and May are 2 months when television advertising in this country climaxes because of the IPL. IPL in 1 month, in 7 weeks or so that it is played, generates 6,000 to 7,000 crores of just economic value just directly around IPL. And all of that has become zero this year. I'm not even talking about the entire universe around IPL, the incremental value that it creates. As you know, a large number of advertisers wait for, and make special campaigns, etc., to launch their products during IPL. All of that has shut down. So you can imagine what's been the impact on advertising revenue. Leave aside sports, entertainment too. From the normal, it's down to 20-25%. That's at the aggregate level. Luckily, your business, that is the news business, is both consumption and advertising is holding up there. But I think it's just because the rest of the universe has shrunk so badly. There's no programming happening. Even when the lockdown is lifted, first of all, to restart programming is going to be complicated because the program, it has all kinds of people who come together, from creative and other support professionals who come together to make a show. They may or may not be available. They may or may not be ready to come in and work. And the conditions in which they will have to work will be very complicated. And everybody who has lost value, all broadcasters and all channel owners will have to very aggressively revisit their programming costs. So those who were making 10 shows will be forced to start with 3 or 4 shows, both because of the logistical challenges and because of the financial pressures. And also because there is only going to be so much advertising that's going to be available. So it is at that level that we are, people advertise we make our money in this country disproportionately from the advertising side, affiliate or distribution income is still small. But people advertise only because they know that there is a market for their goods to be bought and sold. But if nobody is going to buy a car, then why would a car manufacturer advertise? So we are in it for a long and dreadful winter. Newspapers are going to face even bigger problems, and everybody thinks that it's great time for digital, but I don't think so. Digital advertising has taken a hit, and it will continue to be hit for a while.
But do you think as we roll over to the next year, the base effect would kick in? It's a matter of 6 months.
Absolutely. And that is why I said it's a reset. The base effect will be with us unless the country, the government, and the policy establishment, everyone is really very focused on, sort of neutralizing that base effect by creating conditions and, doing things that really double down on the growth. And we will need to do some really out of the box thinking in order to get there. So because we have been, stopped in the tracks for a long time, we'll need to run at twice or thrice the speed to pick up what we have lost out.
Your organization has a very large dependence on sport, and it's not local sports. Globally also, sports or sporting activity will take a hit. So what's your plan B? Now that you've invested a lot there, it could take 6 months, it could take 9 months, but it's going to be, again, anyone's guess right now, at least for this year's sporting activity.
So sports has taken a hit globally, and there's nothing you can do. People's health and safety comes before everything else. So it would be, naturally very immature or selfish on our part to even think that regardless of everything, sports should happen. We also know that everyone is, keen on getting sports back, whether it is governments or administrators themselves. So as soon as the environment is safe, I think there will be various constructs in which there will be live sports that will start to come back. I presume that initially there will be massive restrictions on spectator presence in the stadium, but slowly it will come back. Until then, live sports is one of the few things, Nikunj, for which you can't have a plan B. There's nothing that you can do. If the Indian team is not playing cricket, the Indian team is not playing cricket.
So when everybody is using words like cost cutting and automation, what is your plan of action? Because unfortunately, the headlines which are coming from the media sector, they're pointing to salary cut, job losses. The headlines are quite murky. Can we expect something similar from your organization as well?
We have already taken some measures. We have announced, we urged our senior executives to take a voluntary reduction in their salaries, and people have responded very, very, very positively to that. Almost the entire organization, beyond a certain level, above a certain level, that is, has taken significant cuts in their salaries. And because everybody knows that the company has been very good to its employees over all these years, and now the company is under pressure because the whole world is under pressure, and we need to behave responsibly. So we are doing all that. But look, no employer, to the best of my knowledge, wants to cut salaries, lay off people, because you hire people so that you can use them, to manufacture more, to sell more, to make more money. If you're letting them go, it's an option of the last resort. So nobody does that casually. That is something that I have seen and I always do. However, if you're not in a position to pay salaries, then you're not in a position to pay salaries, and you have to decide whether everybody would go under or you would try and protect whatever you can. And naturally, leaders' first priority in these times would be to protect the company. So it's tough, it's brutal, but job losses will happen.
Okay. With each crisis, we see opportunity and we always see change in pattern, which is that after SARS, it is believed that the Chinese internet shopping as a trend had started. Because of this crisis, in terms of the consumption of media, how will that change? All of us are sitting at home and we're consuming more media. So how is your organization preparing for this new normal in terms of consumption and new content on new devices?
It's a great question. Look, I think moments like this, tragic as they might be, they are a great opportunity to, for us to rethink everything that we have done and things that we keep doing, sometimes just because they've become part of our muscle memory. I'm a big believer in stopping every now and then and reviewing. But for a whole organization, for an economy, for a country, it's tough to do. I think we are at a stage where we have that opportunity to do that. That we should think about how we can, everything that we were doing, what was necessary and what was not necessary. The one thing that it has told us that going to office is highly overrated. People are working, and just imagine if the economy itself hadn't shrunk, and for some reason there was only one restriction that you can't go to the office, then businesses would have been marginally hit because we would all found ways of communicating, making plans, doing presentation. Today, technology allows you to do that. Similarly, with respect to media, and you might get me into trouble for saying this, but I also believe that the ways of working in media are very antiquated. I'm talking more about this country because every time that, I temperamentally, I'm the kind of person who likes to challenge things, and I'd like to believe that I have challenged and tried to do things differently. But whenever I have tried to do that, my usually the first answer that I have got is that, no, this is how it is done, because this is how it has always been done. And then three great names are mentioned, that those three great people do things like this, so we should do it like that. I don't think there is any reason to do that. And I think this is a great opportunity to do that. Do we need to get so many people in a room to shoot a show? Does everybody have to sit in one place? If the supply chains have got distributed globally, why is it that the entire media supply chain remains so concentrated in film city?
So I'm going to quote you, and something which I have picked up from your old interviews. You may or may not succeed if you try to be different, but you will surely fail if you are not trying anything. So what is that you are trying right now in times of crisis?
So look, I'm trying 2 or 3 things. First of all, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't treat this as the new norm. We don't call it the new normal. I don't think it's the new normal. I believe it is our passage into a new world where, 37 floors of office and 500,000 square feet of office and everybody coming in crowded trains and in crowded traffic and coming and sitting together and doing things. So I actually believe that I wouldn't want to, within the discipline of my company, I wouldn't really put pressure on people to come to work every day, even if everything becomes normal and there's no risk to people's health. People just come in. Star has taken some lead in that direction. We don't have mandatory attendance. We don't have fixed leave. We don't ask people to sign in at a time. So we were pretty liberal, but I think I believe that we should actively encourage people to work from wherever they are. Number 2, we should, as I was saying, we should look at lighter ways of creating content, which is less resource intensive, less human power intensive, but very heavy on sharper creativity and very heavy on technology. And I think we will, this whole concept of a gigantic headquarter where everybody is sitting together, I think we should revisit that fundamentally. And finally, for our business, television has already been under pressure, partly because of the kind of shift that's taking place in the environment, and also because television in this country is unfortunate to have a regulator who has no understanding of the business and who's out to destroy the business. So television business in this country has been under pressure, and I think its odds for regaining its health are much less than I would like to think. So how can we pivot the business to get to direct to consumer, make it lighter, nimbler, and make it direct to consumer, disintermediate, and lay the foundation, use this COVID crisis to lay the foundation of a 21st century content delivery, business in this country.
Okay. I have to understand the regulatory challenges. Somewhere some would argue that the amount of money which is coming in the media sector versus the regulation which currently are there, for an entrepreneur to invest and current companies to make profit is going to be very, very difficult.
Yes. Very, very difficult. And, look, unfortunately, we don't realize one thing, that if regulation means that there should be an even playing field and there should be transparency. But finally, if the businesses are not able to do well, and if they are not able to succeed, then as you're saying, nobody is going to invest. And there is a real risk of that in the television sector in India. And now with the COVID crisis, because advertising income was strong and was coming in, so the regulatory pressures that were value destructive on the distribution side were sort of mitigated to some extent. Now it's become a twin shock on both advertising and distribution fronts. It's going to be really, really tough for television business, and fresh investment, very, very challenging. I don't see people coming in to put money.
So without getting into specifics of numbers, you are a listed company abroad. How does your organization feel about investing in Indian media? Ultimately, organizations, they want one thing, which is profit or return ratios. If you're not getting both, why do you want to invest more in India? Because you are investing more in India and your turnover has also increased in the last couple of years.
So look, we are the number one media company in this country. And, if talking about Star India, Disney is a global company, has a very long perspective on business, and it's been built over the years. So they take a very long-term view of business. Everyone knows that the power of India is deep. And, once India moves, it can create massive value. When I took over Star India, the entire television business was much smaller. But over the years now, you can see that it is one of the biggest media and entertainment markets in the world, despite all the challenge. The frustration is that it's stop and start, because suddenly an unannounced shock comes in from some corner or the other, and you just, and which is totally avoidable, but it stops you in your tracks and destroys value. But overall, the power of 1.3 billion people, the power of a big market, and the creativity that is there in this country, we remain very excited about the future of India. So those who are already invested, I think they will continue to be committed. But for new people who have to start from scratch, I think many of them will think deep and hard before they commit here.
Just two more last questions. You spoke about how production companies now should have more agility in producing content, both in terms of cost and also in terms of medium. What is your understanding of the consumer now? Next 2-3 years, where do you think the consumption uptick, in which category, which genre, what kind of content you think is something which you see changing?
So look, I always believe that we give too much credit to ourselves and too little credit to the consumer. I believe that the consumers may not be able to articulate it, but in their own heads, they are usually far ahead of the business and they're far ahead of the business. We do not know, and we do not see it very clearly. So we keep thinking that we are going to innovate. Our innovation usually just catches up with where the consumer's mind is already there. So that said, I think there is already massive movement towards, consuming content on demand on their mobile devices. It was that we saw that back in 2014 when we decided to launch Hotstar, and everybody laughed us off. They thought it was I was being delusional and I was going to waste precious money. But I noticed that people were somewhat impatient with the idea of coming and watching something at a fixed time. And just when the data revolution in this country happened, thanks to Jio and later on the others came in, you've seen what an explosive boom there has been. And our view is that in the next 3 or 4 years, there'll be about 750 million people who will watch content on their mobile devices. And there'll be just about 250 million people on TV. It'll be very sizable, but it'll be 1/3 of the consumption on digital. So that is where the world is going, and this whole COVID crisis has only accelerated that trend, because people are at home, people are working, and in between they have to, they're also catching up with news, entertainment, or whatever else. And that trend is going to get firmer.
What happens to traditional exhibition business, multiplexes, the whole experience of going to movie theater, having a Coke and a popcorn? Is that going to be changing now?
Look, I think movie theaters are going to be around. They are a personal event in movie lovers' lives. Every now and then, when you want to go out, when you go for a movie, you don't just go for a movie. It's a whole experience. You get ready, you step out with family, friends, you go there, you eat something, you have a drink, and then you enjoy a movie. So the entire experience is very, very compelling and is unique. And I think that will hold. But in India in particular, because there is such a dearth of movie screens and theaters, and we have such a agile and fecund movie industry that we make so many movies, it's tough for, we should not be unrealistic and think all movies must get released only in the theaters. And I think what has happened with COVID, and that two things, that one, movie theaters will continue to be, shut for a while, and when they open, there'll be reluctant, access to them. And as a result of that, I think a lot of movies will start going towards OTTs. It's a provocative statement to make, but not all movies must release in theaters. There are not enough theaters, and there are not enough people willing to go there as often. So some movies should come, and I think eventually we look back and think and see that it was the best thing that could have happened to the movie industry, because then we can start making many more movies, and we can start employing a lot more talent. Actors, writers, directors, music composers, all of them. Today, actually, I'm afraid that the output of the movie industry and the scale of our movie business is getting somewhat capped by the number of theaters and screens that we have.
Okay. Now, at heart, you're a journalist. As journalist, it's all about asking the right question for greater good. Now, you are a CEO managing business. The job of a CEO is to take tough decisions and defend hard questions. How do you manage to balance this? What you were versus what you are now?
I remain a journalist at heart. I bring my journalistic skill sets to work every day. And I think whatever little success I've had, my journalistic background has played a big role in that. Because, people often do not appreciate the skills that a good, successful, well-trained journalist has. You are thrown into a different situation every day. You deal with a new problem every day or several times a day. And you talk to people who are experts in their field. And you try and see where they are misleading you and where they're telling you the truth. So your ability to break a problem down, rearrange it so that it makes sense, and then communicate it to a whole lot of people called audiences who don't know anything about that, is pretty refined. And that gives you a very evolved ability to solve problems. And essentially, as a CEO, you're solving problems for the organization and for your business. So I think I remain a journalist. And it served me very well. And I think it's too late for me to change. Why change a formula that's worked?
So we started the interview on a slightly difficult note, which is discussing about COVID. Let's end on an optimistic note. That is what I guess we represent as humans. Look beyond the problems. You've seen many crises before, as a journalist and also as a CEO, whether it's 2000 or 2008. How is this crisis different? And what are the learnings or previous learnings which you are right now implying?
See, we've seen many crises before, but I have not seen any crisis where so many people across so many segments of society, social, economic, political, religious, everything, are so afraid. So the fear factor is deeper and more prevalent than any time else. Number two, the suspension of normal life is unprecedented. And number three, the sudden loss of livelihood or income for such a large number of people is unprecedented. On the good side, I think technology today is far more evolved than it has ever been to deal with a crisis like this. So if we can use technology at all levels to give support to people, those who need it urgently, whether it is in healthcare or otherwise supporting their livelihood, or it is for rebuilding, I think we are in a better place. And it's a great opportunity for a country like India. And I think that's what the Prime Minister has been saying, that we should be looking at how do we accelerate. We have to tweak some of the legacy belief systems, some of the legacy institutions and mindsets. But if we do that, I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, lovely interacting with you, an absolute pleasure. I look forward to much more with you. Stay safe and thank you for your precious time.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity, Nikunj, and stay safe.